And we have begun. I am recording this for posterity and for all the millions of people who desired to get into this room but couldn't because there are fire laws. And so this will be online and you can hand it out to your friends like candy. Oh my God, you've got to see this session on comments. It was so wicked. But we'll get to that. Anyway, hi, this is T-SQL's hidden support feature. And if you read the abstract, I gave it away right there. This is actually an entire session about comments. I imagine about half of you are here because you're morbidly curious. Jen's an MCM. Her master's in there somewhere. What could she possibly have to talk about for an hour about comments? Dash, say stuff. Let's find out. Click ahead. There we go. First we get to talk about me. So hi, I'm Jen McCown. I do lots of stuff. This is some of it. My husband Sean and I run Midnight SQL Consulting. We consult. What else can you say? We like to swoop in and be the superheroes, thus the sort of Batman-like logo. We run midnightdba.com, which is a site where we put free IT training of all kinds. There's no ads. We don't ask you for your email. It's one of those genuinely free things. You know, go learn stuff. It'll make us all happier. We both run Minionware, which is our software company. You'll see our big yellow booth, well, our moderately sized yellow booth out there in the hallway. Come by, get some neat stickers, and find out what that's all about. And we're both, like I said, Microsoft Certified Masters, which I fear I'll be emphasizing today because, again, I don't know that anyone ever gives an hour-long session on comments. And so I might be just a little bit self-conscious up here. But no. In all seriousness, this session came out of a dare. We came up to speak to the Oklahoma City user group. Oh, gosh, 3 or 4 weeks ago, something like that. And I, in passing, was giving a little side note on comments, and I said, and I always have to shorten down what I say so that I won't go on and on. I could make an entire session on this. Somebody double dog dare me. And from the back, I believe it was, oh man, I always get the two of them mixed up. I don't know if it was Matt or Bill, was like, I double dog dare you, do it, I will put it on the schedule. I'm like, I'm in. Let's go. All right. This is what we'll be covering today, the secrets of the universe. No. What we'll be covering is, first we're going to make a case for comments. I'm going to say why I'm so enthusiastic about this and what the big deal is. I'm going to talk how to comment. There are strategies. Oh, come on in. There's plenty of room. That's cool. Please bring 5. We're going to talk about help systems and alternative commenting. Man, I like that one. I personally feel that is intriguing. Alternative commenting. All right, first things first, the case for comments. I will also, by the way, be referring to my little outline. We go off on tangents a lot. It's a really good idea to have some structure in our lives. All right. I said in the abstract, and here I quote, I'll quote with my glasses on, the most effective T-SQL support feature comes installed with every edition of SQL Server, is enabled by default, and costs no overhead. And again, I said that it was comments. So why am I calling comments a hidden support feature? The comments themselves are not hidden. I mean, who here has ever worked with T-SQL at all, ever? Who has ever written a select statement, for example? Most of us. Those of you who haven't, welcome. I'm serious. This is a great place to get started. What on earth was I saying? See? Outlines, right? Why am I calling it a hidden support feature? Not because comments themselves are hidden, but the idea of using them as a support feature is not something I've ever heard addressed. Support features are things to make your code more supportable, easier to deal with, right? And comments, when done well, comments are a form of documentation. They're one of the best forms of documentation if they're done right. And documentation is there to quickly get you up to speed on code so that you don't have to spend time digging through that. We'll demonstrate that today. So the short answer to why are comments a hidden support feature is that it lets you get up to speed. It lets you understand your code quickly. They are targeted documentation. It says so right there. And therefore must be true. It's written down, right? So traditional documentation, those of you who have been in IT for a little while, how many of you like writing documentation? Go ahead. Throw those hands up in the air. Come on, wave them around like you just don't care. Not for the recording, not one. I usually do get one person who's like, yeah, I dig it. Why don't you like writing documentation? This is an interactive class. I'm sorry to wake you up from your work. I'm sorry, say again. Not part of the work. It's not part of the work. Man, you hit the nail on the head. Yes?
I actually would have raised my hand about not minding doing it. The problem is so many other people don't like it. If you volunteer yourself to do your part. There are so many other people that stick you with it.
You're dead right, and that's a great one. And for the recording, if you volunteer to do documentation once, that is your job forever. Now, try it as a woman. Yeah. Sure, I'll write things down. You will never get to touch code again without a fist fight. Yeah, absolutely. Anybody else? Yeah, Russ.
Nobody ever reads it.
Nobody reads it. Yeah, absolutely. You'll read it. You'll read it. I'll read it. But the vast majority, you're right, won't read it. Anybody else have one? It's getting fun now.
It's obsolete in 6 months.
It's obsolete in 6 months. Yes, you in the end.
It's English.
It's English? We don't do English, we do code? You are actually also right. Man, you guys are good. I like this. So let's look at it. It is a pain to do. I'm going to say that getting stuck with it all the time is part of that. Everyone should do their fair share. I don't mind doing the dishes. I don't want to do it after every friggin' snack. So yeah, it's a pain. We are IT professionals. We got into this to solve problems using technology and cool new features and stuff. I want to sit there doing this. I don't want to go and stop solving problems to talk to somebody and say, okay, how does this work in the real world? Because I got to write it down. It's not fun. It's not cool. It's not what we got into this for. Gets out of date really fast. I'm sorry which one of you said that, but good job, you. Yeah, because I write it down. I stick it over here in SharePoint or in a wiki or a Word doc and bumfrig / land. I don't know where it is anymore. And somebody updates the code and nobody's going to update the documentation because I got stuck with it, right?
That's easy to try because people have been on the other end of that where you come into a company as a consultant or even as a new employee where someone left in a hurry and you have no documentation or you have out-of-date documentation.
Out of date. Out of date is better. I am not saying, by the way, that traditional documentation is worthless. No. And we'll get on later on where if I did say that, then you'd be like, oh, you're a hypocrite. You did traditional documentation. Because I did. Do. But it does. It gets out of date fast. And that is a downside to it. Nobody reads it. Right? No, for non-zero values of someone, sure. But generally it doesn't get read. We don't need it. The code is self-documenting. Anyone ever heard that one before? I have. No, it's not, guys. Say again? Isn't that what comments are?
Well, the people like that.
It's okay. Come on in. There's a table up here you can sit on. Yeah, absolutely. Well, no, people will post the code itself as self. Yeah. Yeah, people will talk about the code itself being self-documenting. No, it's not. It's called code for a reason, guys. We'll talk about that in a minute. We'll finish the documentation when the project is done. Yeah, that almost never, ever happens. In all my time of people raising hands, who here has gone back after the project is done and done the documentation? Go ahead, throw those hands up in the air. Whoa, we have like 7 hands up. Okay, so you guys, this is more than anyone in the history of all my talking about this. I know I've never given this session, but I talk about comments in every session I give effectively. This is a long time coming. But it's a rare thing, and you guys are rare individuals. Either your company made you, right? No? Or you're exceptional, we got a yes over here, or you're exceptional individuals with some real fortitude. And I'm sure you are as well, but you also happen to be made to have done it. But I'll document myself out of a job. Anyone ever heard that one before? You're shaking your head viciously. Why? Oh, and that's framed and stenciled on things. There's no way you will ever document yourself out of a job. What were you going to say? You've documented yourself into a job. That's very nice. For the recording, the gentleman here keeps templates and examples of past documentations and shows it off at jobs. That's a whole other session, is showing off at job interviews. Good job. Yeah, you're not going to document yourself out of a job. If they say, hey, why don't you write up documentation on that and then fire you, then we're going to do it anyway. If they don't say, hey, why don't you write that up, and you write it up anyway, and then they fire you, then we're going to do that anyway. Documentation doesn't enter into it. It really, really doesn't. It's been a long time. So comments are better. I'll say greater than traditional documentation in these ways. We'll actually write comments. I'm already in the code. I'll stop for a second and say, oh, by the way, this is related to this other table, which is absolutely essential for these reasons, and this is why we did it. Sure, I can get into that habit. Some of your comments can be. We'll actually talk about that a little later. Hold tight. Yeah, we'll talk about that. Comments are very hard to lose because they're in the object. They get backed up with the database. They get restored with the database. You don't have to go digging around in SharePoint or, oh, I wonder if they got rid of that wiki, or, gee, they did a sweep and chunked an entire drive full of old documentation. If you've got the database, you've got the comments. They're easy to read for that same reason. I open up the stored procedure that is slowing down and I have to troubleshoot, and they're right there, no looking around. Very natural to update, again, for the same reason. If I change a query and I notice that makes this comment right above it incorrect, oh, well, I should correct that real quick. Very natural, especially once you get into the habit of it. Comments are your exobrain. And by the way, how pleased I am to find. I've been saying exobrain for years. I'm not saying I coined the term. I didn't. But it's really nice that it's catching on enough to be on urbandictionary.com. It's the new Merriam-Webster. Be careful if you go there. They have naughty words and things. So yeah, your exobrain is it's that concept of taking this stuff out of your head and putting it somewhere for safekeeping where it can be used. One sec. This is where I should have an. Yep. So I have been. Story time. I have been active in the SQL community for something like 9 years. I'd have to go back and look. 11 years. And I started off getting really upset with myself because I would go to these events. And there was a really, really good one. I went to an event in Florida, and then the next year went to I was going to like 4 events a year. Next year went to an event and was talking to a guy, and I was like, you look familiar. Tell me your name again. And he says, really? I said, what? I'm suddenly thinking, did we date? I've been married a long time. I don't. Really? Sorry, I'm bad with names. Really, Jen? Shoot, he knows my name. I'm really sorry. He says, we sat together for an entire conference. We went through that pre-con together. We were trading notes back and forth. You gave me a hat as the prize for your company that you were representing. I'm like, sorry. But I got it after a while. I figured it out. I now this year will have gone to 18 events and meet hundreds of people and speak to them 3 minutes at a time. If I don't meet you at 4 events in a year and speak to you for more than 10 minutes at each one of those events and then repeat it again next year, that's about my threshold for remembering your name. I'm really, really sorry. You all remember, we've talked a lot. But that idea of exobrain, I really should start writing down everyone's names. But the point of this is that you write a lot of code. You get your hands on a lot of code that isn't yours. You are not going to remember this beautiful piece of code that you wrote in 6 months or in 6 weeks, or if you're like me, in 6 days. I know I did this for a reason. Why did I do it? Comments are for recording the things you're not going to remember. What was I thinking at the time that I wrote this? What were the circumstances? Well, we had to rush through it and do it this way for these reasons. My hands are tied. I couldn't get the dev team to do this, et cetera, et cetera. Be careful, by the way. Other people do read comments. Don't swear too much. Don't badmouth people too much. It's just a little bonus thing right there. Yeah, it's the only time they will read it. You're right. Download that tribal knowledge directly out of your head and into your code. Oh, so the example up here, by the way, is from our product Minion Backup, which I will use shamelessly as an example for 2 reasons. One, it is free, which means this is not a vendor thing where I'm getting you to go out and buy stuff. Go download Minion Backup, install it on absolutely everything in the world 1,000 times, and we'll be very happy. Just don't put your name on it and sell it. Come on in, find a place to stand or squat. There's a table up here you can lean against. And 2, what was the second reason? Minion Backup is one of the largest projects that my partner Sean and I have been solely in charge of from start to finish. Everything in here is pure McCown. Everything in here we were in charge of. We were in charge of the standardizations. We were in charge of how we do the documents. We were in charge of everything. So it's a really good example of how we do things. And yeah, it's good. How much faster can we get to know the code? Let's go look at some code, for goodness sake. You didn't know there would be demos in here, did ya? All right, we open, oh, glasses would be nice. I do this all day long, by the way. I get set up, I put my glasses right here on the table, and then I spend the day doing this. Oh, wait. Okay. So here we have something from Minion Backup called, a procedure called minion.backupdb. What does it do? I'm going to presume it backs up a database, sure, purely by the name. And by the way, good naming conventions will help you a long way. But let's try to get to know this. We'll spend 1 minute trying to really get to know this procedure because it's running poorly or there's some ill effect, there's a bug that's not working the way we want it to. Okay, fine. Here we go. Minion.backupdb. I start with the parameters. They're right up there and they're very useful. We pass in a database name. Good. Looks like a single database name, so we're probably doing a single backup. That makes sense. Backup type. I'm going to guess that's like, full or log, that kind of thing. Sure. Statement only. Oh, okay. So there's probably a feature to just generate the statements instead of run it. All right, makes sense. Execution date time. What would you pass in an execution date time? Okay, we'll table that one. And it looks like there's a debug mode. All right. So far we've got a couple of questions, a couple of good assumptions. Let's keep going. I'm going to skip past these initial variables by the size of the variable list. This is going to be a really long procedure. Because just a variable list isn't going to tell me a whole lot. Let's get down into the meat of the code. If execution date time is null, set it to now. Again, a little weird. Set the current database as the maintenance database. Set the current server as the server instance. Okay, we're probably going to record what database this is running in. Fine. If statement only equals 0, okay, so here's the action sequence. If execution date time from backup log details and is null, then insert to log. Oh, okay, so it sounds like something else might run a backup and insert it to the log, and then this would look for that execution date time. If it's not there, it would add it. Okay, so this has to do with logging. Good to know. We can keep going. We can spend a lot of time. We can spend a lot of time getting to know this stored procedure and what's important and what's not important and what things mean. I don't want to. I only have 40 more minutes to speak. All right. How much faster can we get to know the code with comments? Oh, that looks better. If you download Minion, this is what you'll see. Right up top, we've got what's called a flower box. Big header, looks like this is information about the company. Good. I'm pretending I don't know. And then, oh, wait, look at this. Purpose, awesome. This SP creates and runs, performs. Okay, well, it runs a backup or provides the backup statements for a single database based on the settings configured in minion.backup settings. Cool. We have confirmation what this thing is for, what it does, and we already have a little bit of tribal information in terms of what is one of the most important tables this references. Backup settings. Oh, good to know. I don't have to dig through 4,000 lines of code to figure this out. Important. Ooh, there's a notice. Someone, me, in the past has said something that I need to know. We highly recommend using Backup Master for all your backup ops, even for a single database. Why? Backup Master makes all the decisions on which databases to back up, what order they should be in. Oh, okay, so good to know. Awesome. And if we continue in this vein, we don't even get into the code quite yet. We get an idea of what it does. There's a walkthrough. What? Initial steps, and then pre-code, and then cleanup, and then backup, and there are post-backup operations, and ooh, certificate backup, that's neat, and so forth and so on. Parameter definitions, table example executions, one of my favorites, but I'm not going to go off on that right now. Clearly, and if we get down into the code, oh, okay, this is a log record section. I don't have to look at it. This section is about logging what's going on, right? There's more information. We get to know it so much faster. We have so much more information than we did before. All right. Oh, by the way, comments are not just for stored procedures. They are also for views. They are also so for functions. If you're in the unfortunate position of writing triggers, put comments in your triggers. Tables? Nope, sorry, but we're going to address some alternate things for that. Does someone want to say the magic words, by the way? I say tables and commenting, you say? No? Good. Good. We'll talk about that. All right, now, I have made the case. That was all just making the case for comments and also getting you guys woken up by talking a little bit. Now, how to comment. I give it right away, give it all away right there. Flower boxes, single line. Code blocks, begin, end, and implicit. The mysteries. All right, so start off with a flower box. Everywhere you can put a flower box, put a flower box. And by that I mean stored procedures, triggers, functions, views, right? A flower box is called such because it's right up at the top and it's blocked out and pretty. It's very clear. We have delineated this set for flowers and the rest of it is lawn, right? Typically they contain a source. If it's up online, then there'll be a URL, there'll be a I wrote this, that sort of thing. If you're putting code online, definitely promote yourself in it. We do. You should. If you are inside a company, go ahead and put the source anyway. I wrote this. This is this team. It was on this date. Absolutely. They're going to want to know who to contact or who to be upset about contacting because you left 3 years ago. Either way is fine by me. The create date, sure. The purpose, that's huge. The modification log. I'm a recent convert to modification logs because I didn't typically care. If I go in and look at a stored procedure and see that things change, blah, blah, I don't really care. However, sometimes people will put in nice little hints. We changed it here to account for this new thing. Oh, well, that is good to know. I did a blog on this recently, and somebody wrote me to say, well, all that information should be in your source control. Well, that's nice, but there's two things going on here. One, I'd like it right here in the code anyway. And two, in all my years, and lots of different shops, guess how many have had source control?
Guess how many use it right?
Guess how many put SQL code in there? I've been a DBA for 15 years, guys. 15 years. Yeah, roughly. I got to look it up. 13 or 15, one of those. So yeah, that's a typical flower box. Do more. All right? You're going to be using this. Other people are going to be using this. And while you may not like your coworkers, you can at least give them good ideas and maybe they'll start coding that way too and you'll benefit from it. And we as a society will grow and evolve. It'll be great. Get information about your organization, parameter definitions and values, not just statement only is an excellent choice for running statements manually, blah, blah, blah. But valid options are 1 and 0. In this particular case, it's a bit, so that should be obvious, but I don't care. For backup type, you can do log or full. That should say diff too, by the way. For DB type, it should say system or user. Give people their valid values. Even if, in the code, it checks for valid values and returns an error. It's still nice to have that in your definition. It's much quicker. Temporary table definition and use. This is an innovation of Sean's. We use temp tables. And by the way, I'm firmly in support of taking notes all you want because I can't think without taking notes. But this whole slide deck is online. You can go to SQLSaturday.com for Oklahoma City. Go to the schedule, download it. It's already there. Temp table definition and use. We make use of those enough. It's really nice to say, oh, I see. This one is for sorting out these things. This is how it's used in the procedure.
Like you mentioned earlier, name your temp table so it makes sense.
Yeah, naming conventions are good. That's a different session, but I will totally step aside and say, good naming conventions are your friend. None of this XKG4031 _ build.temp. What does that mean? All right, example execution statement. This is one of mine. It's one of my favorite things in the entire world, bar none. I mean, my cats might come secondary to this, okay? My kids, not so much. But exec, let's get down to our exec statement. No, come on. He may not have the exec in here. Oh, because I'm in the function. Of course, it wouldn't have an exec. Way down here. Come on, where are you? There we go. Example execution. First things first, while I'm coding this thing, how glorious is it just to have that right up in the flower box? Make a change, run it. Okay, that worked out well. Make another change, run it. Make another change, run it. It's gorgeous. It's wonderful after the fact, both for that reason, for letting people run it, and to give common cases. Very commonly, we might want to take a full backup of the master database with statement only off. We might want to back up report server log with statement only on just to see how it works. All right, I don't normally run that. That should have returned something. Might in the wrong thing. But yeah, example execution statements at the bottom. And the table of contents, the walkthrough, this one's all me. Okay, it is so much easier to get a good overall picture if you've got the purpose and then you've got the general step-by-step. These are my chapter titles and these are my section titles in essence, if this were a book. So first it does initial steps and these are the one by one. We will go over the easy way of making this in just a sec because there is an easy way. Single line comments, those are those that I was talking about where you write a query and think, you know what, this information is important. I should say something about this. Man, we're rolling along. So we've got this little section of code here. It says if tuning type level equals 0, select top 1 space equals space type. That's going to take a little bit of digging through and figuring out. Up here, quick little comment. Find out whether you're going to be working at the all level or at the override level. Level 0 is all. Oh, wait, that's right. And here's me with a little bit of knowledge about the system and having looked at other things. Oh, that's right. There's a default level by which it'll cover everything, and then there's an override level per database or per type that'll do the thing. Okay, so there's a balance to your comments. There's a balance to writing an entire book per query and just giving some information. You're going to have to find that balance for yourself. If you've got 14 pages of comments and a page of code, you might be overdoing it a little bit. But we'll talk about that too in a minute. Make code blocks. You might have noticed over here in, there we go, over here in the store procedure that we've got these nice visually impactful section headers and enders that very clearly delineate, as it turns out, a logical section of code. This is just for me. Of course it's just for me. This is all just for me or whoever's coming after me. Because what this does is, again, it's like reading a novel, right? It's great to have a novel in your hands and then you open it up and it's just solid text, page after page after page. No paragraph breaks, no chapter breaks, no section headers, nothing. This is going to be a heck of a read. I heard this author's good, but oh my God. Much nicer. Stephen King. I adore Stephen King. He has absolutely no problem making an entire chapter out of 2 words. No problem whatsoever. They slept. Yeah, but that was an entire thing, and then you move on. There's a different. Anyway, I'm going to stop talking about literature for a second. But what these do for you, other than clearly delineate where these are, is they let you modify your code so much quicker. So let's see if there's anything else I want to say about the blocks themselves. So they're visually significant. They identify logical blocks of code. They help navigation. We figured that out. Simplifies moving and changing code so much. We've been working on our Minion products for years now, and the number of times we've had to say, oh man, you know what? That pre-code section, that should really go right before this other section. I need to move that. Let's find it without comments. Let's see. It's probably using this pre-code parameter. Oh, there's a bunch of those. If DB pre-code is not null. Okay, so if statement only equals 0 with DB pre-code, is that part of it? Does that encompass something? If not, okay, so it probably ends here, or you got to figure it out. There's a lot less guesswork if while you're writing it, there we go, you marked it clearly. Oh, okay, I need to move this section. That's a subsection. I got to find that end DB pre-code marker. Oh, there it is. Cut that, move it, paste it. Wonderful. Or if I need to add code immediately before or after a section. Yes.
It's not SQL Server where I use that technique a lot, but when I'm building an ASP.NET MVC website, where I look at the page that's coming in, whether it's a mobile device, the view frame, the viewport, right? I check the viewport to see if it's mobile device or a laptop, and then I display a different page, right? I want to, depending on what device, there'll be code in both pages that are very similar, but some code is customized to the different device. So I'll be taking code blocks all the time between the two.
Yeah.
To keep them in sync, but also to make sure not only they're in sync, but I don't break something that's
exactly.
one's a mobile device, so the widths and some of this.
So that everything travels together if it has to move. Yeah.
Keep it together, but I also got to keep it separate in a way too.
Absolutely.
Blocks work really good for that.
Yeah, for the recording, in essence, the short version is that this works for ASP.NET too. This works for a lot of things too. And code blocks are a great place to document code block dependencies. I have this, what is clearly the biggest, most visually impactful. What if we were in Word, this would be our header 1, and then we've got these smaller ones that are would clearly be header 2. You can do these any which way you like, just be consistent, right? This is clearly dependent on this. We're coders. We understand that if something is in an outer set of tags, those inner set of tags have to be complete. That you can't overlap one section to another. You know, like A and A, B and B, instead of A, B, and A and B. That doesn't work. So it's using these, by the way, we'll get to that in a second. This, notice I searched using that walkthrough up above, using the walkthrough code. As you're coding, if you do your headers, when you're done or near done, go through each one of those, copy it. Oh, I don't have that. That was a sub one. Where's my walkthrough? There we go. Copy it and put it up here. That's how you easily generate a table of contents. Just go through each one of those and take all the header 1s and put them up here as your first level, and all your header 2, your subsections, and put them up there as sublevels. And you can go as deep as you want. We only went 1 and 2. We don't need every single little bit to have a nice overview walkthrough. By the way, Redgate's SQL prompt has a feature that sort of does this, but not exactly, in terms of trying to give you an overview of the whole thing. And I can't remember what it's called. Is it view outline or something like that? And it'll key off of things like declare variable or if statements. But that's only so helpful. It's a start, but you can do better. We did that. Begin and end labels. We'll just show you this here. Label your begin and ends with an identifier. If any of you, and I don't see anybody, but if you happen to have been in our pre-con yesterday, you would have seen the same thing, but in PowerShell. In there, it's curly brackets for begin and end, and we label the curly brackets identically so that you can find the beginning and end of each one. Here we go. Begin tuning settings level equals 0 to identify this begin. If we came down here and found the end for that, it would say this exact same thing. Here we have if tuning type level equals 0, so we've labeled the begin and end for that. Helps so much when you have nested if or loops or cursors or for any reason you have begin and ends. Yeah. The caveat here is that if you've got a lot of them that are very, very similar, say if you've got if statement only equals 0, if statement only equals 0, again and again and again, identify them slightly differently. However you choose, you could do if statement only equals 0, comma 1, and then duplicate that for your end. Doesn't matter, don't care. You just need to be able to find the pairs of begin and end. What else have we got? I said implicit comments. Format is your implicit commentary. Why? Let's do something. No, not what I tried to do. Hold on. That's a lot of code to try and do this for. How easy is it going to be to read this? This is obviously the extreme example. Let's undo this. Oh my God. Just via formatting itself, without any comments, we can see, for example, oh, look at that. I have a really long list of variables right here up at the top. Automatic, instinctual. You don't even have to think about it. Yes?
So if you're ever doing a little bit on auditing and catch the SQL handle or the SQL the plan handle, and you bring that back from a query, you'll notice when you get it back, it won't be formatted. It never will be if it's only from SQL Server. So you can go to the other great tool is
the SQL Prettifier.
format.com, and it'll format
Yeah, there's that.
There's a lot of
Yeah, the SQL Prettifier it's actually the SQL format now. Oh, here we go. SQL Talk Simple Prettifier. So yeah, there are multiple free ones out there. What I have is a Redgate tool that's installed. That's a pay-for product. Anyway, which is really, really nice. But if you don't happen to have that, you can copy your code, paste it, go ahead. And yeah, formatting does you a lot of good. Take this query, just this query is an insert query. If this were a select with a couple of subclauses, it would be really, really easy to see that just based on formatting. I'm going to say it again because it's important. Formatting is your friend. Formatting is implicit comments. If you can't make yourself do it manually, then use a tool. All right, we did that. What have we got next? So I said earlier that there's a balance between how many comments you can stick in there and how many comments are actually useful, right? I don't really want to read a novel with every little insert store procedure. Nobody wants to write, okay, few of us want to write that much information for every little stored procedure. So there is a balance, you know. I think we've achieved a really good one here. The headers, the line comments for specific things, the markers, the flower box up at the top. Really, really good stuff. If you have a ton of information, however, like we have for our minion backup, and we do have a ton, I think the initial document was over 100 pages long. Yeah, that's not all going to go in. Help systems, I think of as advanced commenting, and I don't think that's a cheat. I really don't. The whole purpose of this is to make the code supportable, right? So a help system, and we'll talk about a few options, should be accessible. So depending on who this is for, right? Let's say that I'm writing a backup utility for DBAs. Well, then I can give a stored procedure to run to search through help, right? Let's say that I've got a system that I want to provide help on for end users, for people who are in the company maybe, but not necessarily DBAs. You could do something actually very similar. Make a stored procedure, give the people rights to that, even hook it up to a simple front end, a simple VB front end, and people would be able to search on, okay, you know, what does this mean? How do I do this? How do I do that? So they should be accessible, they should be searchable, and updatable in terms of, you know, whoever is maintaining it. You know, I don't know, I want the end users updating the help system. Seems like a bad idea. This is not a wiki, folks. So your options include using an @help parameter per stored procedure, creating a separate stored procedure like a minion.help or a help.me, something like that, or some combination. There's nothing wrong with doing a hybrid. So the good side of help systems are they're very extensive. We can put a lot of information in there, a lot more than anyone would want to put into comments and have to dig through. They're very user-friendly, especially if you're dealing with DBAs and technologists, or if you have a minor front end for end users. And they're searchable. On the downside, they're very extensive. That's a lot of stuff to write. Well, sorry, if we're going to document stuff, then we might have to write a lot. What were you going to say?
They have software. If you want to get into real help systems,
They're to generate help systems.
Well, not out of scratch, but you have to design it. But they'll help you link your different code specs, help you also.
Yeah, there are other tools as well. We're going homegrown today, but absolutely there are more options out there. But they're extensive. You've got a lot of content to write. I don't mean that the system itself should take a lot. It requires more support than comments, especially if it's user facing, right? Well, what about this? Well, what about this? So there's a danger of adding to your workload, potentially. And formatting can be troublesome depending on how you deal with it. What have we got next? Yeah, we're not there yet. Now we're on to demos. Let's close all these down. Close, 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 close. Yep. There we go. So let's start with an @help parameter. Let's say that every single one of the stored procedures that I'm building are going to have an @help parameter that I can run. So here's one. I'm not sure if this is in master or not. Yes, it is. Here's one, interesting enough. Sean is tutoring at the company's behest a couple of ladies in Texas somewhere, I don't know. And he gives them homework. And one of their homework assignments was to write a help system for their stored procedures. And they work individually, so we get 2 different answers back. I didn't get the other ladies, but I did get Jordan's. This is get log space, and I labeled it Jordan. and she's got a help parameter with it. What comes back, and I absolutely adore, by the way, that she put logic in to say good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. I think that's cute. I think that's fabulous. You know, little niceties, it's the things you care about. But she gives the purpose. There's a compatibility note, not just a parameter list, but she divides out the parameters by their function, which is really nice. Gives all the information, and she could do a ton more. She did this very, very simply, and there is nothing wrong with this. What she did, let's go find that at help. No, without that. There we go. Here we go. If help equals 1, here's her logic to figure out if she wants to say good morning or afternoon, and then just a bunch of text. Again, there is nothing wrong with this. I see no problems whatsoever. If you desire, if your business or your team or whatever requires something with more complexity, sure, go for it. But this is better than what we had before, by God, right? So I think this is absolutely wonderful and well thought out too. And she doesn't have any formatting issues whatsoever because it's just pre-formatted space, or tab. Awesome. I think that's what I wanted to say about that. Let's pause a moment and check the outline. Hold it. We talked about that. Yeah, we talked about that. Next up, let's look at a separate help system. So let's say that I've got a lot of information. Maybe it's not just related to stored procedures. Maybe I want to document some information about tables inside the system, right? Which would be difficult under other circumstances. The thing that none of you has said yet, and they're still not saying, we'll talk about that in a minute. Do you know what I'm hinting at? You know, how do people typically document? If they're going to document in the system, how do they document a table? Extended. Yeah, there we go. 2 people said it. Very brave, very daring. We'll talk about that later. All right, so a separate help system. All right, so let's go ahead and do that. And I think I've already created all these. So if I run create schema, it's going to say it already exists. Yes, so I'm going to actually create a help schema. I'm going to create a table to hold all of my answers, just a title and then the article itself. I'm going to create a procedure to help me insert new ones. And I believe, and by the way, for everything, I've got my flower box and my comments. For everything, I've got my example execution and one of my parameters for everything. And I believe the answers are already in there. I think I already ran this. Select star from, what is it called? Help.answer. There we go. So by the way, this gives you the option of, if you prefer not using a stored procedure search for it, just querying the table itself, right? We've already inserted these. Now, here's my procedure that's going to use, it's used to return help topics from the help.answer table, not from to the, that one I can correct. So all right, let's do a couple of example executions. I want to search for an article called How to Do Things. Cool, I found the article. No problem. I have passed in a string. The default is a wildcard. So clearly down here, it's going to say where title like title, right? Which means if I run this, it's going to get me back everything. That's the default behavior that I want. I want a list of articles back if I don't have a search term. That's the way. You can design your own system your own way, but this is actually very, very nice. Let's say I'm just going to look for everything that has help in the title. Well, we've only got one so far. It's help.answer insert. Very nice. Now, how could we improve this? Like wildcards are fine, but we can do more. We should be able to search the answer bodies as well. There are other things that I can do to improve this as well. But instead of going over all of those, we'll just look at the actual help system for Minion Backup, which is another step up from that. By the way, like I said, you can combine that @help parameter and the separate SP. It's very, very easy because you've got a table of answers. Well, it's very simple. @help equal 1, run that stored procedure or call from that table for this particular stored procedure. Does that make sense? The answers are already there. No problem making a hybrid system. So we've done more for minion.help, and I encourage you to go and download it, obviously for my own nefarious purposes, but of course, as a good example, as a decent example, I think, of a help system. Now, I did write this a couple of years ago. There are a couple things I would still like to clean up, so you can be nitpicky and write, but I already know. But even so, it's not bad. We have a help objects table Because we divide things up by module. I've got information in here for our backup product and somewhere down here for our reindex product, right? I've got object names. This is sort of the header level thing. And then I've got details for every article. I've got several sections, and I order them individually. So if I were, say, to run, where did it go? There we go. Minion help for backup and quick start, then I would get back the quick start article with all of its subsections in order because I've got a details table that's secondary. You can sophisticate your help system as much or as little as you like, and there is nothing wrong because it's more than what you have now. How are we doing on time? 10 minutes! We are right on time, actually. One quick check to make sure we said everything we want. And are there any comments? We did that. Nice. Oh yeah, I almost forgot. I'm glad I checked the outline because there's more than one way to skin T-SQL. Nope, not that one. Open file. That one. Some of you may have heard of Atom Mechanics SP Who is Active. Anybody? I have a good many of you. Very good. Those who have not, run out as soon as the session is over and download it. It's a wonderful tool for production DBAs because it grabs the things that are currently running and gives you back a ton of information. I like the ringtone. Now I'm going to have that song in my head all day. Awesome. Where was I? Who is active? Oh, lots and lots and lots of parameters, lots and lots of options, lots of configurations. So how could he document that? Think about where he's coming from. He's got a procedure that he made. He put up online for download. You want that to be a single entity. You know, those of us working for a company designing a system have the luxury of doing as many different objects as possible. Whereas for something like this, it's really nice to have a single self-contained entity. Okay, so a separate table is out. I assumed, and I've been using this for years. And for this session, I went and dug into it, and I thought, I'll go and see. Does he have a temporary table in there that he populates with all the information? Couldn't find a temp table. Huh. And it's not referencing anything externally. How's he doing it? I love this. Let's find @help. I love that that's fairly universal, by the way. Oh, let's see what comes back, by the way. If you run who is active with help equal 1, it comes back with multiple result sets, which I don't care for as much, but what are you going to do? But it does serve a purpose, and this is his choice. So information about himself and his product, all of the parameters, very, very nice. And then down here, I believe this is possible output, the output that's going to come out. Really comprehensive stuff. And then if you go look for @help, you get this weird stuff. I can't find any content anywhere in here. Where does it come from? The answer is both very fiddly and very, very elegant. This is all string parsing stuff. And this query comes from, he's pulling from DM exec requests and SQL text for the currently running SPID, which means when I run help, when I run SP Who is Active with help, it grabs the text of who is active because that's what's running now and parses his parameter list using these little keys. How fiddly and freaky is that? He had to spend a lot of time on that. I would not have done it this way, but I love that somebody else did. I don't recommend copying this unless you're really into string parsing, but I just like that as yet another example of the awesomeness that is a help system. All right, moving on because we are running out of time. Okay, alternative commenting. We've talked about the big movers and shakers in SQL. Store procedures, views, functions, and triggers. What about tables? It's very fundamental. How do I say I'm not really fond of extended properties? Not a fan. Let me show you why. If you're not familiar with extended properties, it is a feature of SQL Server, that allows you to basically tag objects and just put in information into the system itself. It's kind of what we've been looking for all along, sort of, in terms of being able to save information about things. So let's say we want to just add an article, we'll say, to a database. We're going to say help.me, and about that I am documenting things. So we add that. with sp add extended property. If I want to update it, I use sp update extended property. Now, if I want to get that information back out, all I have to do is select name and value from f and list extended property. Default, 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 default. Yes, all of that is required. You can change those so that they refer to specific, oh, this one's, I don't know, I'd have to look it up. This one's schema, and this one's object, and this one's this name, and this one's that. I despise this. This makes me crazy. Give me a second. I'm in a rant. You can't stop a rant. I'm not going to type this every time. I would much rather type this. I'm a busy DBA and I don't have time for default, 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 default. I do not. Yes.
I agree. I hate these properties, but it is useful in ETL metadata.
It is useful in ETL metadata. I know. And it does depend on your purpose. My purpose in comments and the hidden support feature is for me. I am supporting the code, right? I'm not arguing with you. You're making a good point that they're not evil. They're not bad. I don't want to use extended properties for this purpose. Let's take a quick look at adding an extended property to a specific table. Exec add extended property, name equals MS description, value equals, this is my article text, level 0 type is schema, level 0 name minion, level 1 type table, level 1 name help objects. Who wants to do this every friggin' time they want to add or update a comment about a table? Not me. I'm going to go write a help system and go along my happy old way. This is why I don't care for extended properties. The other reason I don't care for them, the other reason I don't care for extended properties is because, and this is kind of a cheat to say, they tend to be hidden. And this is more of a cultural thing. There are very, 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 very few shops that are in the habit enough, in the process enough of using extended properties that they know to go look for them or to update them. This is why I'm so very firmly in support of coding in the code when you can, and when you can't, do the next best thing, right? That's my argument against extended properties. So SSIS packages, 4 minutes, awesome. You can document your SSIS packages in a very similar way. I'm just going to kind of roll past this here a little bit, but we have an entire video on this on midnightdba.com, and it's linked at the end of the slide deck, which you can download so you don't have to write all this stuff down. Use annotations extensively. If you right-click in your package, you'll get a little list that says add annotation. It's basically just a text box you can stick in there and add things like your own flower box with what this package is and who made it and when, and your contact information and the purpose and what calls it. By the way, I didn't go over that before, but how it's meant to be used includes what calls it. Is this meant to be used ad hoc, or is it called by an automated process, or both? Is this a part of a report somewhere? And if so, what's the name of that report? Is this SSIS package meant to be kicked off on a regular basis by a job for some other? Write this stuff down in the package. Other people need to know. You're going to need to know in like 6 months, right? So yeah, do your package title, author, purpose, and called by. Do steps as a nice kind of a walkthrough. Mark your beginning and end of workflow. Very, very simple and easy. It might be obvious, but then again, it might not. Here's where it starts. Here's where it ends. Name every element well. Find each customer, get customer data, load customer file. There's nothing wrong with that. It's way better than sequence container. Sequence container tells me nothing. Use your line comments inside the objects. Here you have to do the thing. There are only 3 regions, so this should go fast. Awesome. And you can mark your paths as you need to. Sorry, I left that cursor within a cursor as part of the screenshot. What are you going to do? On failure, go to this and reprocess as possible. So much information at a glance without having to dig into every element. Now, commenting SSRS. Oh, man. You don't even have extended properties for SSRS. Unfortunately, you're mostly kind of screwed when it comes to documenting SSRS inside. But you do have a couple of little things you can do. First things first, SSRS reports are just XML files. And you can comment XML files under very strictly regulated rules. One, you have to use this form of comment, these guys with a bang, and I forget where that's from. It's an XML comment is what it is. The comments cannot be inside any tags, and they cannot be at the beginning of the report. Therefore, the only place for your comments is after the end of the report, after that closing report tag. Finally, you cannot anywhere in the body of your comments use -- like you would in SQL. Yeah, that didn't jack me up over and over again when I was doing this originally. This is also very, very kind of hidden and people are not used to. This is like what I said. You don't have a lot for this, so you would probably want to put this information in your help system or in an external document. There's only so much you can do. Yes?
I would just suggest possibly if you're connecting your SSR reports to a sort of procedure using what you just mentioned, SQL. And when you do it from a report, you can have a flag saying SQL for the report and not for the actual
not for the actual store procedure. Yeah, that's not bad.
Return in the report a little content section for help.
Right. For the recording. Right. For the recording, the summary is basically if the report pulls from a store procedure, then store procedure could return help on the report as well. The second place where you can include comments for SSRS is inside expressions. I would not recommend putting a ton of commentary in here, but your expressions, your functions do need a little bit of comment. So sure, use that tick mark. That's the VB comment marker, which is the language that this use, and make little notes. So there we are. Yeah, if you're embedding code into SSIS, it's a good idea to annotate that as well. Oh, SSRS. Well, both. So we have made a case for comments. They are documentation. Traditional documentation has weaknesses. Comments are easy to write, handy to read, and natural to update. We got 30 seconds. And you get to know the tribal knowledge really fast. Here is the summary of all of the how-to. Like I said, this is downloadable. And you've got a set of resources right there at the end. I would really appreciate you guys coming. We've got some feedback forms up here. If you want to grab one, fill one out, please do. Other than that, come out and see me at the booth, and thanks a lot for coming. And that is... Like I said, you can get that slide deck out here at the SQL Saturday, Oklahoma schedule, right there where it says download. Good stuff. Thanks a lot, guys. Wonderful. Thanks very much.
I'm a technical writer.
Yeah?